Good afternoon and welcome to another edition of the Daily Fix. I am your usual host and presenter, Advocate Baloyi. It's been a hectic day in the Pretoria High Court and the Johannesburg High Court. This morning I started in the Johannesburg High Court, and by midday I was in the Pretoria High Court. So it's been a very, very hectic day for me. Anyway, let me get into the business of the day. I'm once again looking at the prosecution case and how the prosecution is dealing with this case, especially how Judge Baloyi is coming up with evidence before the MEYIWA trial to try and build up a solid case for conviction. But sadly for Baloyi is fishing in the dark, with all due respect to him. He's fishing in the dark. You know, when an experienced prosecutor like Baloyi resorts to witch doctor evidence, then you know something is very wrong with the prosecution case. I mean, Judge Baloyi has been a prosecutor, I'm sure, well in excess of 30 years, or somewhere thereabouts. You know, he ought to know better than to come up with evidence of a witch doctor. Remember that witch doctor who came before the court called Zwani, who testified? That evidence is worth nothing in law, and Baloyi ought to know better. It is worth nothing in South African law. Because you see, if you consult a witch doctor with the hope that the witch doctor will perform some miraculous act that might well get you off the hook in respect of a crime that you're suspected of having committed, that consultation with your witch doctor, whatever transpires there, amounts to nothing. In law, you have done nothing. It is as if you have not done anything. So that whatever happens there and whatever transactions you get into with that witch doctor amount to zero, you know. And now we see Baloyi leading, witch doctors who are supposed to have been consulted by the accused persons, perhaps with a view of, getting them to evade justice following the death of MEYIWA, which things are flowing out of the alleged confession of Mosisi. And Mosisi is denying all that. You know, as far as that confession goes and that witch doctor part of things goes, as far as that goes, even if Mosisi just opted not to say anything, that would have no impact on him. And it is surprising that everybody is sitting in there in that courtroom, not questioning what value or what relevance this witch doctor evidence from this witch doctor from Swaziland, Mkulu was his name. Everybody is sitting in that courtroom. Nobody's just asking, questions like, what are we dealing with here? Are we dealing with relevant evidence? What is evidence? Evidence are facts which are relevant. Evidence is facts or are facts or is composed of facts that will add value, to an understanding of this case, and for the judge to make an informed decision when he determines the question of innocence or guilt. Now, this witch doctor business is just simply a waste of time. And Mosisi has done very well just to dismiss it, to say this is just Mpoto and Kininda stuff. I have got nothing to do with these things. But I am saying, in law, even if that confession could be believed, even if he had said some of these things, or these things had actually happened, they amount to nothing. So Baloyi is fishing in the dark. Just take a listen to this.
This is the traditional healer we used to go to before we commit any crime. He's from Swaziland.
Angazi lutho ngayo yonke lento le. Into ongazi ngayo yonke le.
Paragraph 5. The Inyanga stays at Katlehong at Palm Ridge, and we entered there, 3 of us.
Angazi lutho ngayo yonke lento le. Ukini into ngaba nolwazi ngalento.
Marco is the one who explained to traditional healer, in parenthesis, Mkulu, that we want to check if we are going to succeed in doing this job.
Namanje ngisasho angazi lutho ngayo yonke lento le.
He further mentioned to Mkulu that we are going to kill Senzo MEYIWA, and we were bought or hired by Kelly Kumalo, who was a girlfriend to Senzo MEYIWA.
Namanje ngisasho angazi lutho ngayo yonke lento le. Ukini into ongazi ngalento le. Benayo umbotho.
Together with Mboto.
Now, Mr. Subia, we know that a traditional healer by the name of Mr. Lionel Robert Zwani testified in these proceedings, and we find his evidence in the proceedings of the 4th of September 2023 from page 20, page 37.
Lalela.
Yes, we will revert to his evidence later. Paragraph 6.
Kodwa akukho engikwaziyo ngaye.
Paragraph 6. Marco told us that Kelly want money from Senzo, but he never told Mkulu that. Mkulu, in parenthesis, traditional healer, checked for us and said we are going to succeed to kill the said person, and he also gave us protection in brackets, protection in parenthesis, medicine and belts to put on our arms or at our waist, and which was going to make us to succeed in killing him and to protect us from any danger. We paid Mkulu 50 rand for checking our job.
Angazi lutho ngayo yonke lento le. Ukini into ngaba nolwazi nombotho.
Paragraph 7. When we finished the job, we decided that we must pay him, in brackets, Mkulu, 5,000 rand, and we left to the hostel, and they left me there to their place of residence.
Angazi lutho ngayo yonke lento le. Ngiyasho ukuthi namanje ukini into nombotho abangazi ngalento.
I sat at my place and never spoke till Saturday, in bracket Sabata, where I received the call from Marco, where he told me that we are going afternoon to the work which we're planning to do.
Angazi lutho ngalento le. Umuntu ongazi ngayo ukini into nombotho.
Paragraph 8. They never told me the time, but they arrived at about 1800 hours, and they took me by the very same polo.
Angazi lutho ngayo yonke lento le. Ngaba ukini into nombotho abazi ngayo.
I was sitting at the back seat. Makimba was driving. The vehicle drove to the address Foslores, and the vehicle parked by the corner as Makimba was driving. While we were driving to the place, Marco received the call, and I heard Marco answering the phone and said, "We are on the way, coming," in brackets, Sisondleleni.
Namanje ngisasho angazi lutho ngayo yonke lento le. Ukini into nombotho abantu abangazi ngayo yonke lento.
But Lieutenant Colonel Mboto was not part of the investigation. How would he have known about all this?
Umbotho uyafolela ugininda bahlangana khona mabebuya sebeza kimi lapha sesekhodi yathi bafika sebefika kwethu.
Paragraph 9. After dropping the call, he told us that Kelly is calling and want to know if we are coming. Then we alighted at the corner and we walk on foot to the house, and the driver was with Marco, and he asked who was going to enter the house. We discussed that we will make as if we are committing robbery, and the firearm was the one, and it was at Marco's possession.
Angazi lutho ngayo yonke lento le umuntu ongazi ugininda nombotho. Ugininda washo la eKatori uthi uyafonela umbotho.
Paragraph 10. Marco asked who was going to get in, and I told them, no, me, I'm going to stand outside and watch if there is somebody who came in and disturb us. I must quickly report.
Namanje ngisasha angazi lutho ngayo yonke lento le ebhalwe la ugininda nombotho abantu abangaba nolwazi bayo.
Marco and Makimba got into the house, and Marco was the only one who was in possession of the firearm.
Angazi lutho ngayo yonke lento le ngoba ngisho ukuthi ngaba ugininda nombotho abantu abanolwazi lwalento.
Paragraph 11. They entered and closed the door and demanded cell phones. According to them, they said they found 3 people in the house. That was MEYIWA and 2 girls in the dining room. One of those 2 girls was Kelly. They said MEYIWA refused with cell phone, and he stood and grabbed each other with Marco.
To better understand this, we must ask, how do courts treat claims involving traditional healers? Legal analyst Mpumelelo Zikalala has often weighed in on this issue. He explains that while traditional healing and beliefs form part of South African culture, courts require hard evidence, documents, witnesses, and facts, not spiritual consultations or rituals. A Sangoma's involvement may be part of an accused story, but it cannot on its own establish guilt or innocence. Zikalala points out that unless what happened at a traditional healer's place is supported by concrete proof, it carries little legal weight. Courts cannot convict on belief, they convict on evidence. Zikalala coming in, stay tuned.
Good afternoon to you and also to your viewers. Yes, they are, but you must remember that the only privilege which is ultimate in this case would be that of a client and a legal practitioner. So when it comes to medical doctors, a medical doctor can be subpoenaed to come and give evidence in a court of law. So once they've been caught by the court or subpoenaed by the court to come and be witnesses, then the client or the patient and medical practitioner privilege goes out the window, and they are forced to come and spill the beans in terms of what was happening within that particular stage. But in this one, I did not think that it's really assisted the case, the state in this, because he didn't go into details as to what they came to about. So there was no indirect confession that was made stating that this is what we have done, someone has died. He simply says someone will email. There could be various versions of saying someone has been injured. So it did not bolster the case of the state in any case, but I think it added to the drawing up of the bigger picture and what the state would want to do, especially drawing a very good impression from the side of the judge in terms of saying, look at how planned this whole process was. They even thought about going to the traditional healer even after doing the bad deed, because they knew that there were going to be repercussions if they were going to be there. But in terms of what the normal manner of doing things would have been done, a traditional healer would not be caught. But I think in this case, the state is saying we're going to court for all.
You see, unfortunately, what is happening there for Baloyi is he is trying to come up with this witch doctor evidence to try and establish a case that, you know, these people acted together perhaps in a common purpose and ended up consulting witch doctors. That is just not good enough. It is the act of a desperate prosecutor who, with all due respect to him, does not seem to know what he's doing. Because, you know, of what value is that evidence? That evidence, any lawyer worth the name will tell you is worth nothing. So the court also ought to take up issues like that, because you see, reading irrelevant evidence in court is a waste of everybody's time, because at the end of the day, irrelevant evidence just fills up the record and does nobody any good. So that is one aspect which I wanted to bring to your attention. The use of irrelevant witch doctor evidence by the prosecution in the sense of MEYIWA trial. Maybe they think Inyangas will do something. But this is not evidence. It is a lot of hot air and nothing. Having said that, let me thank you for watching this video. Let me thank you for all the views and subscriptions that I'm seeing. And have a wonderful, wonderful evening.